Alright, so welcome to the 2019 uh, O-level question on Hullabaloo in the Guava Orchard by Kiran Desai. So I'm going to go through these questions, primarily the essay question part A and the PBQ part C, alright, because that's the ones that I'm most familiar with. I'll mention why I'm not really going to touch on part B later. Alright, for part A, honestly this year was quite a tricky year because they are talking about a minor character, the monkeys, and how they're significant in the novel. Uh, Typically, I would have bet the on how the monkeys are significant to Sampath. Basically, a relationship kind of question. But when she says significant in the novel, we're actually looking at a plot-based question. Right. So you have your character, you have your relationship, you have your plot, and then you have your literary device or your theme. So in this case, it's quite a rare one because you're looking at a minor character and how that minor character affects the plot. Usually it's a major character and plot. Reason being that minor characters really affect the story as a whole. But nonetheless, I've prepared 5 possible paragraphs for you to write about. Bear in mind that this is my opinion. It's not certified, grade A by Cambridge, but I hope this helps you. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to mention what they did and then the point. Alright, so obviously if you have your point, you should rephrase the statements over here. So first of all, I'll mention about how one of the things the monkeys did was the monkeys actually brought Pinky closer to Sampath. In fact, one good way to organize your question would be to kind of link it to Sampath throughout. So in this case, by terrifying Pinky, they actually, to cut a long story short, led Pinky to be, to have a chance encounter with a hungry hot boy, which led to her seeking advice from Sampath on how to deal with her feelings for him. And of course, this caused her to be closer to Sampath. So that's one significance of the monkeys in the novel, restoring or improving Sampath's relationship with his sister Pinky. Alright, next, they are Sampath's only source of friendship and comfort in the story, which is important, I suppose. So don't just say what they do, but say why is it important, right? So it's important because he doesn't have anyone else that he can share with or that can make him feel connected. In fact, yeah, not even his mom, right? Because his mom is quite quiet and just cook. So I would say they help him feel connected to nature, right? Which of course is an important part of the story as he longs to escape from Shakot, and the monkeys are pretty much the best option he has, right? In terms of friendship. Yeah. So coming back to the idea of he longs to escape from Shakot. So the idea that he longs to escape from anything human related because that causes him pain, whereas the monkeys being nature related bring him calmness, bring him joy and comfort. Okay, moving on. Another significant role of the monkeys is that they divide society between those who want to keep them and those who want them to leave the orchard. So I'm referring specifically to a quote where society is divided at the national and local level, and people refuse to buy or sell from one another, right? So basically causing chaos in the country, or maybe just Shakot. Can't really be sure. Okay. Another significant role, and this is very similar, is how they cause the civil servants to panic over how to contain the monkeys. This is a very broad idea. You can easily mention how they start competing with one another to have the best idea to present to Sampath. I'm going to type this out. With each other to have the best idea for Sampath or the DC. Alright. And don't just stop there. So you can say reviews how how selfish or incompetent they are. Alright, so always be sure when you talk about significance, what's the consequence, what's the effect. Alright? Don't just talk about what happens, but show that you understand the significance of it or the consequence of it. This is another one. Alright, caused Mr. Chola's relationship with his son to deteriorate as he was concerned with getting rid of the monkeys so as to maintain his profits. So I'm referring to somewhere much earlier on where the monkeys start. Oh, actually it's important. You can mention monkeys threw apples at Mr. Chola, serving as Sampav's bodyguard. Okay, and at the same time, stealing the sweetmeats at the stealing the sweetmeat offering so that Mr. Chala couldn't recycle them, right? Cutting into his profits, and also leading him to consider building a hermitage for his son, which of course made him worry, etc., etc. Alright, so how this affected and perhaps caused him to launch his plan, which eventually led to Sampath leaving the orchard altogether. Alright, in fact you could also mention, that's a good idea, mention how the monkeys carried Sampath away at the end, right? Brought him to paradise. Okay. Yeah. So quite a few things you could mention over here. Alright. The important thing is you mention how you phrase the point and how you link it by talking about the consequence. In fact, one great thing would be if you could link up everything by saying perhaps the monkeys. Okay, so hypothesis or link. Monkeys monkeys restore Sampath. Monkeys connect Sampath to nature and reveal the true. Wow, this is quite epic, or this is quite punny. Reveal the true nature of others. Monkeys restore Sampath's connection to nature. That's nice. Yeah, don't know how that links with Pinky, but yeah, okay. If you want to say true nature of others, then you have to kind of link this. Yeah. I don't know. I'd probably pick this, and this to fit these two. Alright. This is really like the 22 to 25 mark grade where you can pick very carefully your points to match your hypothesis, rather than just like randomly stating ideas that fit the question of significance, but without these ideas linking to one another. So for the ideas to link and form a coherent picture, that's really, really high level. But to even have 4 paragraphs related to significance, that's good enough to get an A. Okay. Alright, moving on. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Anyway, moving on. So according to the Miss Josna question, she's another minor character. At first I didn't think it was possible to talk about her. I thought she'll come in a pair with Mr. Gupta, but yeah, let's see what I've come up with. Okay. So feel about Miss Josna is actually a pretty easy question. So basically your impression of her. So I mentioned here that at first she was uncaring because she did not care about Sampath at the post office. Then she was harsh because she scolded him together with Mr. Gupta after the wedding, even after he had been fired. So like no mercy, no sympathy, just adding salt to the wound. Right? I'm gonna add that here. Adding salt to the wound. Then this is a bit of a leap, but basically how she's actually quite foolish because she easily believed in him after he revealed her secrets, while on top of the tree. If you remember that section where he started throwing everyone's secrets out of desperation. Okay. but then later I'll add that she actually became quite dedicated or devoted to him because she defended him against the spy and those wanted to get rid of the monkeys. She was firmly in the keep the monkey camp. Perhaps you can... Oh, I'm also thinking about the part where she sang very beautifully for him. Much earlier on. I'm gonna put this in front. Sang beautifully for him, which calmed and relaxed him. Okay, but this is technically caring, I guess. So different point. This part, yeah, somewhere around the late between like 17 to 20, when the spy was saying something like, "Get rid of the monkeys." Okay. Last but not least, a bit pitiful that after Sampath left, she fainted and fell into Mr. Gupta's arms, right? Which actually was his plan all along, to get rid of the monkeys so that Sampath would lose his attraction over Miss Josna, and Mr. Gupta could kind of get her attention over again. So pitiful, not just because she has lost Sampath, but because she has fallen to Mr. Gupta's ulterior motives. Okay, so yeah, some possible ideas you could mention for Miss Josna over here. Alright. If the question was Mr. Gupta, on the other hand, yeah, how will you do it? Interesting point. I don't actually think it's possible because Mr. Gupta appears here. He does appear with the district collector. Okay, yeah, I guess Mr. Gupta is possible. Right. District collector, then he appears here. Okay. Moving on. But you know, there's 2 essay questions and a PBQ to choose from, so I wouldn't be too worried. One of these are definitely possible. This question is, I would say, the easier one because it's about entertaining. Although personally I would prefer the monkey one because it's easier to score very highly on it. Okay, if you have your hypothesis, of course. For this, one other moment in this novel, this is something I'll touch on later, but over here, it's a how question. Alright, so you definitely have to mention your literary devices. So I mentioned irony a lot over here. Oh, why is it so small? Okay, irony, yeah, dramatic irony, yeah. Okay, later I'll mention situational irony here. Did I? Yeah, here. Okay, talk about the difference between that in a short while. So if you look over here, let's see. I made a policeman dizzy instead of helping. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's a bit of irony over there. Right, pretending he's a superintendent of police. I guess a higher level would be, let me type this here, bonus. If you show your understanding of the superintendent being lazy and ironically would do less to help than Mr. Chawla. Okay. I'll also add to this that, yeah, so I hope you can see the double irony. One, that he wants to get news, but he's actually making it more difficult for the policeman. And second, that he claims he would do a better job as he claims that if you're the superintendent, he would do a good job, but actually the superintendent is probably somewhere plucking flowers or basically avoiding his job. Okay. Next, yeah, Sampath would right this minute be back in his usual vegetable. Right. So the idea that Sampath would listen, but actually Sampath does not want to. Right. So if I look over here, be back in his usual vegetable like stupor. Where is it? Okay, so yeah. So instead of being in a stupor, he's actually alarmed to see them again. Okay. Moving on. The next point. Okay. The next point. Yeah, so I'll link this to entertaining by talking about how it shows a lack of self-awareness in Mr. Chola, as he lacks social skills to be aware of what the superintendent is, what the superintendent would do, as well as understanding his son Sampath and how he would react. Okay, moving on to the second form of irony. Right, so this is dramatic irony. Actually, the first one, yeah, I guess all of them would be dramatic irony because it relates to. Hold on, now let me type it here. Okay, dramatic irony. Oops. Dramatic irony. The audience knowing something the character does not. Okay, and in this case, it's Mr. Chola who doesn't know anything. Right, in this other case, the Watchman of the Forest. Okay, let's see over here. Well, actually, I don't quite like the original answer I had over here, which is about a contrast between the way Desai earlier showed Sampath's excitement. I don't really like this part. Actually, what I'll contrast this would be how the town made the most of the drama. Right, neighbors came by regularly for news. Everyone shouted out their support on the way to and from the market. Right, but the news, and then you have in Shakot, people visiting their friends a great deal, right? A great deal of information passing by this way, and then when we least expect it, the news actually comes from the watchman as he was cycling into town to bring his sister some curds. So the fact that rather than coming in a very dramatic fashion, it comes with the watchman of the university forest as a message while he's delivering his sister some curd, makes it very anticlimactic. Alright? Because there was no big discovery, it was just a piece of news that was delivered by someone from out of town, and as he was doing something else, like it wasn't the main, he didn't come to town like, oh, hey everybody, check out this news. It's just like, oh, as I'm delivering this curd, by the way, I saw this, right? So that's why it's anticlimactic, form of dramatic irony, right? Comedic effect, as the reader, let me rephrase this, as the reader expects the news to be delivered dramatically by someone who comes to the town shouting it out. Okay. Another thing I'll point out is, there's contrast between the way showed the town's excitement about Sampath's disappearance. Okay, I think this is much better. Alright, moving on. Another form of dramatic irony exists in a disparity between the audience knowing that Sampath had a lot of things to say and what his family hears, which is actually nothing. Alright, so we can mention that he imagined himself declaring, asking a surprise fashion, being defiant, serene. However, he did not wish to hurt everyone's feelings, wanted to shout, but in the end he said nothing at all. So the dramatic difference between 2, 4, 6, right? The 6 possible options he considered and the choice he made, which was to choose none of them, which resulted in him being very indecisive, right? Is of course a hilarious contrast between that and his inner bravado, right? As it really makes it seem to the audience that he's really out of his mind to be unable to give a reason for wanting to stay in the tree, right? If you really wanted to, you could mention this as a form of relief from the stress of his relief, or it reduces the tension in the reader, for the reader, over, I don't like to say how his family would react, so I'll probably say something over the anger from his family's reaction if he replied with any of the methods he considered above. So yeah, alright, so 3 things you can talk about here. Of course, you only need 2. Some other scenes you can consider is, I always like talking about this scene when Amaji was running away from the cinema monkey, and she was scared by her own dentures. So please mention, of course, at this point in time, everything is just irony, because I guess number 1, she has the wrong priority of eating the ice cream, and number 2, she's scared by her own dentures, which is the last thing she should be scared of because it's part of her, alright? Another form of situational irony being that the hungry hot boy has misplaced priorities in arguing over whether it's a monkey or donkey that had stolen her dentures. I think at this point in time you should also be looking at the end of the story for other humorous scenes, because you never know, they might just ask you to analyze 2 scenes as an essay question for humor. It has come out before, alright? So to be safe, don't just memorize 1, memorize 2 scenes that you can use. Okay, so in this part, chapter 24, just before they arrive at the forest, as the district collector and everyone else brings all their equipment, right, we notice that the brigadier finally catches sight of the modest green pigeon that he has always been in search of, and he suddenly gets distracted and tries to catch it but fails, and then gets very disappointed. Actually, I don't know why, but I keep noticing a double irony everywhere I go. 1, that he has no sense of priority, again similar to what I've said here. 2, right, the idea that this creates a bad omen for him, which is fulfilled later with all the blockages that's happening. So in a way, he kind of causes his own bad omen, I guess. Okay. Why is all of this entertaining? Because it shows how ridiculous the brigadier's sense of duty is. I guess that's for the first irony, and for the second one about causing his own bad omen, because yeah, it's a form of situational irony. No, not situational, dramatic irony, because the audience knows it but he doesn't, that there's going to be all these blockages, right? And why is but the main thing I want to ask is, always consider, why is it humorous rather than tragic or sad? In this case, I would say it's humorous because he causes his own bad omen. Probably if he hadn't been distracted by this and left on time, he would have avoided all of these roadblocks, right, which happened at the same time that he's leaving. And of course, he's only leaving at that time because he delayed himself. So yeah, I guess the fact that does not realize he causes his own bad omen. Okay, another situational irony, because the DC also blocked himself when he signed the CMO's vacation leave. Okay, third thing you might possibly be able to mention if you were to analyze this scene or this moment would be the many delays caused by the cook and Vermaji's wife moving out all at the same time. In this case, it would be the device of exaggeration or hyperbole by having so many unfortunate coincidences happening at the same time. Okay, which of course is humorous, as we see the district collector getting delayed over and over again to comedic effect, because why is it comedic again rather than sad? Well, all the delays are caused by himself. This caused by his own interactions with others. So it's a form of justice being served. Yeah, and also because it leads him to regret taking on this job. And again, why is this sad? Or rather, why is this humorous? Well, I suppose you can say it reveals his own immaturity, since he's afraid of the scolding he'll get from his dad, even though he's so old. Alright? So, okay. Entertaining because he's afraid to, because we can see it leads us to see that he's afraid to get scolded by his dad, even though he's a working adult. Yeah. Okay. There you go. I hope this helps you in your O-level exam preparation. All the best.